Welcome to Research the Hard Way. This course is the prequel to the three-part series on speed reading, note-taking, and memorization. And the reason this is a prequel is because those three main pillars are the essential things to focus on when you're in a course, you're in the classroom, or somebody recommends a book, you're at an event. You've got something in front of you that you want to learn, and the question is, how do I learn this faster? Or you're looking back at your past and you're saying, well, I've been learning pretty inefficiently. How could I improve that? But one of the most important pieces to the puzzle is research. And a lot of people assume that the way they're getting their information right now, their quote unquote research that they're doing right now, is sufficient, and that the primary thing that they should be focusing on is that speed reading, note taking, memorization. And there's certain patterns people tend to go through, where the first thing they'll focus on is oftentimes speed reading or oftentimes memory. They'll usually start in one of those places. Then they'll eventually get into note-taking, realize the value of that, structuring their information, their knowledge, and then get into, well, how do I organize it all? And then at some point they'll think about, well, where is all this information coming from? And that's going to be one of the really cool areas that we tackle first, which is, how do you find the best information and where is this stuff coming from in the first place? So one thing that's very important, think about a area of knowledge where you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. You know the insider language, the insider jargon in that area. So when you go to do a Google search, you're not just, you could think about, well, what would your grandma, or what was somebody who didn't know anything about this subject, what would they search in Google if they had this problem versus what would you search? You would probably search something where you were using industry terms. You were using terms that people in the know were using. Somebody who's a novice, they don't know those terms, and so they're not able to search for those terms. And what you'll notice is people who are in the know and people who are writing for people in the know and creating content for people in the know are using different language than the people that are writing and creating content for people that are beginners. And so when you're a beginner, you're gonna just by default use that sort of beginner's language. And so that's what we're gonna be talking about in the first major section of this course. Second section is gonna be about, how do I find the best information? Where do I go? So once I know how to look for it, what words to use, how to identify and think about all that stuff, then where do I go? What are my different options? How should I process each of those so that I can collect all my research in one place? Because that's another thing. If you're just going around browsing, opening millions of tabs and reading stuff, when you come back to that and you're thinking about what was I reading yesterday? What do I remember yesterday, or that research I did a week ago or a month ago? And you're not going to remember most of it. And once you have this system in place, you can go back to research that you did a year or 2 or 5 years ago, and you realize you would have remembered almost zero of what you're looking at. And having that experience is just breathtaking, because you realize before you had that system, and this is my own experience as well, before I had that system, I was just losing vast amounts of the work that I was doing researching. So it's really important not just to know where to look, but also how do you take that stuff and store it in a way where you can come back to it later. So that's what the third section is about, is how do you organize all this stuff? And that's what the last section of this course is going to be about. So it's first about, what is that, and this is one of my favorite topics, is what is the flow of information? Where do new ideas start? And then how do they eventually get to the general public? So that idea that there's a great quote, the future is here, it's just not widely distributed yet. So how do you get closer to the source of these new ideas, closer to the source of the future? And that future information that you want to get access to, there's patterns to how it gets distributed. So I'm going to show you how to get upstream so you can get to it faster, and you can find the stuff you're looking for. So when you go into a new subject, a new domain, a new thing that you want to learn, you're going to be able to get deep fast. And that's what this is all about. So I'll be going through a few more things in this first introduction section, and then we'll be getting into that first main section of the course on the flow of and source of information.